Welcome! This is the Rustic Songbird podcast, and I'm your host, Lydia Walker. This show is for you if you're ready to learn more about the craft of songwriting and take your skills to the next level. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get started. My guest on the show today is my great friend, Amanda Kenner. She is a singer-songwriter, worshiper, just an amazing person in general, and I can't wait for you to get to know her on today's show. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you, friends.
It's going to be great to share some of your story and also just some encouragement as we look into the new year. And for the songwriters listening, I hope that you're inspired by Amanda's story and encouraged by what we're going to talk about today. Just a real look into the life of a songwriter and kind of like, what we have to deal with as a creative person. And so, Amanda, I'm super excited to have you on here to share some of your music and your story.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I've written with you a little bit and have had a fun time getting to sing with you and love your voice. And I know you have a new project out, so we'll talk about that as well and get people connected with your music. But let's talk about how you got started in songwriting. When did you know that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Well, I wrote actually. I always kind of wrote songs, like just little songs here and there. I've been leading worship since I was 12. So, but I remember I wrote this guy that was living with us at the time. He gave me this little chorus, and he's like, "It doesn't have a melody." So I wrote a little melody, and that was that. We were just like, "Oh, cool, a little song." And jump ahead, like I think it was like 10 years later or something. And I was at my church in Louisiana, and they're like, "Hey, do you have any songs?" And so I shared this song actually with my husband, and we wrote more of a stronger melody to it. And then my church ended up recording it on their album. So that was kind of my first like maybe this could be a thing,
Yeah.
And then we moved to Nashville, and I got connected with Brave Worship, and having that community of other songwriters that are just kind of doing it on their own, and that really helps you be like, oh, this could really be a thing, so
yeah,
that's
and how we met was through Brave Worship, and I love that community of ladies as well, and just the amazing ministry that it is.
Amazing.
I love the encouraging and community aspect of it, and I always get something out of being at their events, and have met great friends like you.
Yes.
I agree. It's an awesome group to be a part of. So it's been fairly recent that you've released songs as the artist too.
Yes.
So tell me about that process. Was that nerve-wracking to put your voice and your song out?
Yes. My husband's a producer, engineer, plays everything, way more talented than me. But so we always wanted to do a project together. We always thought that would be something we would do.
Yeah.
And so it kind of felt like I was writing more, and it kind of felt like, wow, like maybe we should start working on a project. And I really didn't have like my songs at the time. I was like, okay, let's do a project. And then, oh, we need songs. So at that time I had made some connections to some amazing songwriters here in Nashville, and they were my friends, and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna start a project. And then it was just like, it was kind of this it just went really fast. Like we just started writing these great songs that I connected with, and then we had more than enough songs. And so
that's so cool. So your new project is called Strong and Brave by Amanda Kenner. It's an EP. So tell me about the songs that were on this project. How did that theme of being strong and brave come out through the songs?
So one of the songs, and it's actually like the littlest kind of fun song in the middle of the project. And I remember I was in the writing room with Corey Voss and Mary Elise Duncan. And they were just like, well, what are some things you've been thinking about? And at that time, one of my friends had been diagnosed with cancer for like the fourth time.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that. I mean, she had cancer a lot, but so it was just on my heart, on my mind, and so I was like, man, I would, what would that be like having to go through that again? And then we just started writing about, it was a scripture, and I can't think of it at the moment, but I think it's Joshua 1:9. But we were just talking about how God gives you that strength to go through things and calls us to be strong and brave and calls us to not be afraid, to trust him. And so we just wrote this song, and I chose that to be the title because of just kind of like the courage that it takes to step out there and actually do something. Because I remember the first time I was like going to ask someone to write with me on a project, and I was like, what if they don't want to write with me? What, and it was like, you have to step out, I think, and that's where God meets you. And so it was personal, but then it was like, oh, this is kind of like, it's got the project has these big anthemic songs on it, but then Strong Brave is like this little song with a really big message.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I called it
I love that story. How cool. And
that.
I think what you said was really important, that it does take courage to step out and to put yourself out there, especially with your art, because it
Yeah.
is so personal and you want people to like it. And so when you put a song out there or put out a project, you want people to love it.
Yeah.
And you don't want anybody to say anything bad about your music and what you've created. But I think a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves when really it's good music, and so
Yeah, totally.
most people will like it. It might not be for everyone, and that's okay,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
but it's good music. So I don't think that should hold us back
Yeah.
as
And I think if
artists, but
it
a lot of
means
times it
something,
does.
yeah, totally. And if it's like your song and it's something, that you connect with, and I think people will recognize that. And because I always feel like you can't really sing something that you don't feel, that's not.
Yeah, it needs to come from your heart. And so that
Yeah,
personal element is really important for
yeah,
it to come across and relate to people as well. And as a writer, you want people to hear it kind of as you wrote it from your heart. You want
yes,
it to mean something.
yes.
Well, I'd love to hear from you on what things you do to kind of get inspired to write, and like how you get your song ideas.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, a lot of my song ideas come when I'm driving, which is really interesting. There's this spot actually in Thompson Station where it's like every time I drive on that road, I have a song idea. It's so weird.
Wow, that's
But
awesome. It's good to know that. So then when you like
there's
have
something
writer's
about that.
block, you can just drive
There's
by.
something about that road. It's like every time. But yeah, I think really just making the space it's like every time I make space to just sit down at my piano and just worship, to just leave that space to be creative, because now that you're a mom, and all women know for sure, and guys too, but it's just hard to find space sometimes to just, and I think songs are just everywhere, and we just have to sit and let them come to us. Like, it's really
Good.
really super simple, but
Yeah, life gets so
yeah.
busy. Sometimes I'll be wanting to get a song idea out, or I'll have some idea, but then like the radio's on and somebody calls,
Yes.
and then I'm like headed to a meeting or an interview or something, and then it gets busy. But I was thinking, I get a lot of ideas while I'm driving as well, and so I was thinking while I was driving, wow,
Me
maybe
too.
I should turn my phone off so I can't see that somebody's calling me, and then turn the radio off and actually like
Yes.
focus on one thing and write
Yes.
down all the ideas that I have for that song right then before I leave.
Yes.
And
I
so
know,
I
and
think
voice
driving is a
memos
really
are
inspirational thing. I mean, you're just looking ahead, you're hopefully looking at the road and
yeah.
not being distracted. But I just feel like that's a good time to think And so
Yeah, yeah.
as your mind is working, you might be singing
Mhm.
while you're driving, and
Yes.
song ideas can come to you. So I do think that's a really
Yeah,
good hack for, just making that space of saying, okay, when I'm driving, I'm not going to turn on the radio. I'm not going to listen to anything. I'm
yes.
just going to,
Yeah,
create
I
something
mean,
new.
it's crazy, like, almost every time. It's crazy.
Yeah, because you're a creative person. It makes sense that like ideas are everywhere,
Yeah,
but you really have to like take that responsibility of making it into something and not just shrugging
yeah,
it off and forgetting it. So I think that
totally.
was a really good point of like making that space
Yeah, for sure.
and
I
just allowing yourself to explore that idea.
Yeah, totally.
That is so
Even
good.
just start singing. I know I write a lot of worship songs, and I know every time I just, like, start singing, and if, like, I start singing a worship song, it's like I'll hear a tag or something at the end of a song, and that can turn into another whole song.
Yes,
It's
definitely.
cool. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that helps. So you don't have to start from zero and start from
Yeah,
like no melody, no idea. You can
yeah.
start singing other songs, other worship songs, and then already be in that flow, but then create something new
Mhm.
out of that. And so I
Yeah,
think that's a
totally.
great way to get inspired.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So, do you have any tips for when you're co-writing? What is your process like when you go into a co-write? What do you bring with you, or how do you prepare?
Yeah, I a lot of times it depends, like, if we're writing for somebody, at that point, I wanna hear what's on their heart and you know, what their church has been going through, what they've been going through. Um, but a lot of times it's just kind of like listening for a while, just listening to people talk and share stories. And obviously, like, co-writing is so much about, well, it's mostly about connecting with people, and the relationship, I think, comes before the songs, but it's so beautiful how songs flow out of that. So I just like to come in and listen and kind of feel, and also have things. Hopefully, I've been disciplining myself to be in that space, and so that I have stuff just in my heart to bring. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of, but listening first and just
That is huge because
yeah.
everyone thinks their idea is the best. So if you take time to
I have this really
listen,
cool song. I totally want to hear what you guys have to say because it's
yeah,
good.
I've got a really good idea.
I already wrote it, but
Yeah, be like, no, mine's the best. We're a little biased, I think, to always think that like our first idea is just perfect.
yeah, and I think I've been guilty of that. Like, oh man, I'm gonna bring this in, and then it doesn't even. It's just not. It doesn't connect to people, or so. And I think I've heard Chrissy say that recently, where um, she doesn't even like bring anything in anymore because it's so much about what's going on in the room and what God's doing in the room, and you know.
Yeah, but that's a great place to start. I mean, for
Mhm.
someone who has lots of experience and kind of knows how the process works, um,
Yeah,
you kind of get into the flow and get comfortable with it. But definitely for anybody starting, you don't want
yeah,
to like get nervous or go blank or not have any kind of starting point. So bringing in a
yeah,
couple ideas to a co-write is a great way to just have something
totally.
to go by, even if you don't
Yes.
use that idea.
Yeah, and sometimes it does help to have most of a song done because I've been in a writing room like that before, and it just feels good to have a song,
Mhm.
that's even though somebody brought like half a song, it's like cool to have finished a song too.
Yes, sometimes finishing a song is the hardest part. So if
Yeah.
you can get some fresh eyes on it and have someone, tell you
Oh,
their
yeah,
perspective, it can turn out even
totally.
better.
Yeah, totally. We did that with one of my songs from the EP called You Are Here. And Daniel was just like, man, I just think that it could be a little better, and there was just something. And so he brought it to Dustin Smith, and it was he just made it amazing, and it was, yeah, so that can totally happen.
That's so cool. It's hard to kind of let go of your idea and allow somebody else to tweak it and add to it, but when you
Yeah.
do, it can turn out so good.
Yeah, totally.
So just giving up some of that control and saying, let's do this together, I think is it's a sign of a mature writer
Yeah.
because you're willing to change it for the good of the song and not
Yes.
just keep it the way it initially was just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So I agree. And
Totally. It's always like I used to think, oh, there can only be like 3 writers, but now it's more about let's just make the song good.
yeah,
Who cares how many writers are on it? Like we want the song to be good, you know?
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, we are looking into 2019. A new year is starting, and I can't believe it.
Yay!
I cannot believe it's like practically here. So, I mean,
I know. I can't either.
let's talk about resolutions. I mean, people make resolutions for the year and say, this is going to be my year. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to do all these things. And then it's hard to like keep that up.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, what are some ways practically that you use to just reset and look into like future projects and setting goals for what you want your music to look like or your songwriting or just life in general? What are some things that are helpful for you to
Yeah.
reset?
Yeah. I think definitely I love this time of year because you get kind of a break from everything and you can just kind of breathe and be with family and friends and that also I think I always like to fast beginning of the year. I think just because it's more about like I want to know what God wants me to. I want to make sure that I am following after His heart and doing the things that He wants me to do and say yes to the things that He wants me to say yes to and help me with plans, because we talked about plans and
Yes.
yeah, like sometimes he he shows you something He wants you to do, but sometimes it's hard to like carry it out because as a creative I'm not super organized and I'm not really a planner by nature, but I think with His help and His guidance, and that's what helps me, I think, get anything done in life.
Yeah. So you
So,
just make that time to seek the Lord and
yeah,
fast and pray and
pray.
like you said, taking a break and just thinking through those things, that helps me too. So
Yeah,
I think that's a
totally.
really good point.
Yeah, and just I think just looking at what you have and not being overwhelmed by maybe what you don't have. So looking at the things that you can do,
Hmm.
like I know one of the things with Brave recently has been give what you have.
Hmm.
And so, just baby steps. I feel like so much of it is baby steps.
Yeah.
And I used to think I had to take this big giant leap and then everything would fall into place and be awesome. But baby steps. Yes.
Yes, that is so good. It's lots of little things that become the big things.
Yes.
I agree. Are you a journaling type person? Do you like to write things down to get ideas out of your head?
Yes, I do. I actually journal a lot. I write a lot of my prayers. Yeah, I've always done that. I've always done that. I feel like which makes sense because I'm a writer. I feel like I'm better with communicating through writing. So I do that. Yes.
That's awesome. You probably get a lot of song ideas that way, but just decluttering your mind and putting all your thoughts
Yes.
down on paper really helps in the organization process when you're trying to just think through your options. And
Yes.
one big thing for me lately and how I'm kind of going into the new year is simplifying and not
Yes.
overcommitting
Oh, yes.
to too
Mm-hmm.
many things and trying to do it all. Just
Yes.
say what's the most important thing and do that first.
Yes.
And then saying no to things that aren't meeting your goals too. I think that's
Yes.
so important. Are you a yes person? Because I'm like the kind of person that wants to say yes to everything and do it
Yeah.
all. So it has been really hard to learn how to say no. Has that been
Yeah.
a struggle for you as well?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I am. I love to just be involved in everything and I love people. So I'm just like, I just want to be where the people are. And but yes, you have to. I know for me, it's like when you are a writer and singer, you have to have that time to pour, to like that alone time to fill up, you know, and to even write. Like if you're doing so many things, it's kind of even hard to even have time to write. So that is, yes, one thing that I have to work on too. I'm with you, girl.
It's so interesting because a lot of times we think we struggle with something and like we're the only ones. Like,
Yes.
oh, it must be easy for everyone else to be organized. What's wrong with me? But
Yeah,
I
I
think
know.
it is something that we all struggle with because you have
Yes.
to be disciplined, like you said earlier, and
Yes.
have to, um, make those hard decisions. And a lot of
Yep.
times we want to just ignore it. Like you said, like take a leap and hope it all falls into place.
Yeah.
But most of the time that just creates a really big mess. And
Pretty much.
it's not the best business plan to just
No. Nope.
make the leap. But I think, yeah, all those little steps, like you were saying, being
Yeah.
faithful, being consistent, being
Hmm.
disciplined to whether it's writing every day or
Yes.
planning ahead and prepping before you go into a co-write, before you
Yes.
go into performing, just knowing that you're prepared will
Yes.
help things go smoother. And
For
then
sure.
I feel like you're more prepared to deal with the things when they do go off plan. When
It's
things
true.
change, then you can actually be more flexible if you have some kind of preparation in place.
Yes, it's so true. That is so true.
Well, before we wrap up, tell me your tips for the songwriters listening, for people that are wanting to get better at their craft and might be feeling discouraged right now about their own songs or putting themselves out there. What would you say to the writers that are, wanting to improve and get better?
Yeah. Well, first I would say be strong and brave.
Yes.
And you just have to do it. Like life is so short. And if you have something inside you and God's put that in you, it's just time to do it. There's no better time than now. So, and you might fail, but you're not a failure, because anytime you're trying, you're succeeding. Like, and I know in Nashville and with there's so many good places to get connected out there. And so I would just recommend you just get connected with a group of people that can cheer you on and lift you up and pray for you, and because we're all in this together. And so yes, I would encourage everyone to just connect with other writers and people in your life that can keep you going.
I love that. Thank you for sharing from your
Yeah,
story and your experience today.
of course.
I want to make sure that our listeners can get connected with you. So if you're wanting to hear Amanda's music, you can get all the links for that at her website, which is amandakinner.com, and her new project that we were just talking about, Strong and Brave EP, is now out on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon, and you can find it online and listen. And we would love to hear from you too. And make sure to send Amanda a message and say, thanks for being on the Rustic Songbird podcast. Thanks for sharing your story. And I think you will really enjoy her music. So amandakinner.com, and the new project is Strong and Brave. Thank you so much, friend, for being here on the
Thank you,
show today.
friends. This was so fun.
I love your heart for worship and songwriting and for
Yes.
people. And I hope that you have a blessed and happy 2019.
You too.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a fellow writer. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next episode.